Thanks for tuning into episode 51 of the Music Makers Cookbook podcast. Just a quick disclaimer at the front. Halfway through recording, we had a power surge issue recording today's episode, so there is a fluctuating in audio quality. It does get fixed halfway through the episode, but we wanted to keep the initial part of it since, we had some good stories going on and all that. So
yeah. Sorry about that.
Like cooking, everything has a recipe.
A set of instructions to follow in order to gain a certain result.
Music is no different.
Be it ingredients for a dish, a set list for an amazing show,
or a release strategy for a successful launch.
These are all recipes.
Hi, we're your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brandon.
Come and join us in our kitchen as we go through the Music Makers Cookbook.
Let's get cooking.
Welcome to the Music Makers Cookbook, the podcast that helps independent artists cook up recipes for success in the music industry. I'm Sean.
I'm Brandon.
And this is episode 51.
Damn.
That means next week it's been a full year.
It's been the big year. Next week. Pretty sweet.
52 episodes, a full year of posting content on every Tuesday consistently. It's pretty crazy.
That's great, dude.
Yeah, so next week we really reflect over what we've been doing, what we're going to be doing, so definitely tune in on that. But before we do, the only reason I bring it up is one, it's a big milestone, and two, is that it was a lead measure that we had, something we could control to help us achieve the effect of helping artists build success in the music industry.
It's a great way to frame it, Sean. In fact, I think that's actually what we're going to be talking about today.
So what are you talking about today?
I think we're talking about lead and lagging indicators, bro. I think that was a good way to put it.
Yeah.
But it's true, though. You were right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, so what are lead and lag measures or indicators?
I mean, it's basically cause and effect, right?
Okay.
Your lead indicators are your cause, right? So you are in control of your lead indicators, and then that leads you to your lagging indicators, which is the result of your lead indicators and how well you're able to put those together and to achieve a goal. So that's like the result of it, and you don't necessarily have control of the lagging measures. Yeah. How did I do?
You did a good job,
Thanks.
Yeah.
Wait, you have anything to add on top of that? Did I miss anything?
just same information, different terminology, I guess. It's just, as I said, it's cause and effect. It's basically the lead measures are the actions you take that cause something to happen, and a lag measure is a result based upon it.
Better way to summarize it.
Yeah. No, I think yours was really solid.
No,
it was good. Don't put yourself down here. Okay,
well, I already did.
Oh well, whatever. But basically, it's going to be a good episode, really, for anybody. It's also good for us to go over, because a lot of times making goals and making plans and strategies for what we want to achieve in life is a huge part of just being successful in life as a whole, let alone music. But if you're doing any sort of music, you know that it comes with a step ladder of things you have to achieve and goals. And it can be easy to look at the people who have already made it and the big success out there and have these huge lofty goals of, I want this, I want that, I want to make a living in music, I want to be phenomenal on my instrument, I want to write some awesome songs that touch people's lives. And a lot of times what we base all of our goals around are these lag measures, these lag indicators. The result, the things that we don't really have necessarily control over. Cool, you want to make a lot of money with your music, you want to make a living in music. That's awesome. That's why we're here, to make a living with this. But what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What do you have to do to get there? How is that goal achieved? What can you do to make a lot of money?
Yeah.
If your goal is to just make money in music, the default is going to be doing just, I'm just going to put my nose to the grind. I'm just going to do a lot of work. I'm just going to make a lot of music. I'm just going to do keep doing what I'm doing for a long period of time. It's a marathon, not a sprint, yada, yada. Which, these things are true. You do need to work hard. It is a marathon.
Yep.
But if you be more specific, if you can sprint in certain sections in these lead measures that actually cause the difference, that make the effect of your goals, or you make your goals the lead measures that actually cause things to change, you're just going to be way more productive and achieve your goals a lot faster. And if you're achieving these smaller goals that lead to the large ones, you're going to feel more rewarded because you are constantly hitting milestones versus, man, I've been doing this for 5 years and I'm still not making a living in music. That's really mentally hard versus, every 2 months I do the next thing I need to do and I can see the growth, and you feel like you're constantly growing because you are constantly hitting your goals.
Yeah. It's easy to get caught up, trying to move forward, right? And but you end up actually moving left to right instead, right? And like it's really easy to do that, especially when you're like, oh, I'm doing all this work, I'm putting all this effort towards it, I'm working really hard. And then you somehow convince yourself that you're working towards a goal when you're really not actually doing that. You're kind of sometimes just staying the same, right? And it becomes this kind of David versus Goliath thing where your Goliath is the lagging indicator that you're trying to reach, right? And you are David and you're running towards that goal, right? And you're trying to slay that goal and make it come true. and sometimes you're just not moving in the direction that you need to be.
Yeah.
And you know, in the case of shiny object syndrome, where we get caught up with a bunch of different things in our lives, right? We move towards these certain maybe areas that we shouldn't put our time into. I like the way that you said it, right? It was like in certain places you should be able to sprint, and you know, versus where there are areas where you should maybe not even walk towards, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, these lead indicators, they'll help guide your way to your lagging result. You just have to put the time into like making sure your lead indicators are, first of all, like really solid, and then like second of all, like this is what you have control over, right? So this is really the only thing you can do to facilitate a decent lagging measure for yourself.
Yeah. And let me get real personal here for a bit. This is something that I have always kind of struggled with, and the whole philosophy of it just takes more work, it just takes more time, yada yada. It's a marathon, not a sprint. These whole things that I bring up. A lot of this is me talking to myself in this episode.
You're talking to me too, brother.
Because like I've been making a full living in music for about 8 years at this point. And for a long time of it, a lot of years, it was just consistent 12, 14, 16, 18-hour days, 5, 6, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
There have been stretches of time where for months, every day I was in the studio all day, to the point where sometimes I would even sleep in the studio.
Yeah.
Because like I want this, I'm grinding, I'm doing the work. Like I need to make a living with this. I need to build. I just got to put the hard work in. It'll happen. Because I want to make a living doing this. I want to make a living in the studio. Well, okay, cool. That's a lag measure though.
Right.
That is the result of I want to make a living in the studio, and I was doing it the wrong way. I was equating hard work, quote unquote hard work, by doing the easy thing of just working more, just putting the time in.
Right.
Whereas now, as we're doing this podcast, it's starting to learn of like, okay, what are the lead measures? What do I need to do to actually make a living in this?
Right.
Make it personal. One is I need to help the artists that come through here. I need to make sure that they can be successful when they leave. So that way, like, you know, a rising tide raises all ships. So like, if they're more successful, they're going to talk to more artists that are then going to have referrals to me, which allows me to give discounts to past music, like people I work with. So incentivize them to share. So they get a deal, they win. I get more work, so I get a win. Things like that. I need to start marketing more my services and get it out there so people know what I'm doing. If nobody knows what I'm doing, that I have a studio, if no one knows that I do one-on-one artist development coaching, if nobody knows that I do remote mixing, mastering, or have resources or give one-on-one messages on how to properly record at home, then no one's going to talk to me about that. And I'm just going to be in my studio working at the same hours again and again and again, and burning myself out. Because like for most of the time, for years, for like 6 of those 8 years, it was all live music and it was all Fiverr work, where you're getting paid pennies on the dollar, but it's the volume method. I'm like, oh, I'm mixing every day, all day. I'm doing the work. I'm going to get there eventually. I'm doing hundreds of songs a year. This is what I want to do. No.
I mean, you bring up a really good point, because I've been through the same thing too, you know. And like, this was a little bit more recent than yours. Mine was probably like 2021. I'd be over here 12, 13 hours a day, and like my drive was an hour and 10 minutes long each time. So I'd be gone, you know, from like the family and the apartment for at least 14 hours a day, every single day. And what Sean's saying here is not, and I want to highlight this just for the listener, you know, just for you guys listening. And Sean's not saying don't work hard. Like the time that Sean had invested was necessary, and the time that I've invested was necessary. Although there is a little bit of a maybe better way looking back, where we could have invested the time differently, right? The time still needed to be invested somehow, some way, shape, or form, whether it was practicing mastering, it was practicing mixing, it was practicing networking, whatever the case may be, because you need to put the time into it. So we're not saying don't work hard, but it's just saying work more efficiently and more in mind and in line with your lagging measures that you're trying to reach.
If I had taken 6 years of, instead of doing Fiverr work, which nothing against it, there's awesome, you know, music that comes from people who use these platforms.
Great creators on Fiverr,
And I still do some Fiverr work every now and then. But if I had spent those 6 years focusing more on building connections and creating resources that actually benefit artists, and getting out of my comfort zone, and instead of be like, nope, I'm just in my room, I'm mixing, that's what I do. Instead, cold reaching out to artists, introducing myself, getting out there, basically doing exactly what Brandon's been doing for the past month.
that has been true. That has been true.
Which you've seen some awesome growth from doing that.
Absolutely.
We can talk about what happened now.
Yeah, we can finally talk about it now.
Yeah, like you've worked with the Detroit Tigers at this point.
Yep, that was really cool. It just came out on this point next week, right?
Yeah.
Last Monday?
Yeah,
Two Mondays ago?
Last Monday now.
Yep, exactly.
Well, so
I'm
8 days
doing
ago.
math.
8 days ago.
Yeah, there we go.
But yeah, so one, it's awesome that you got that gig.
Thank you.
And if we had focused on certain specific things throughout our careers, it's entirely possible that we could have gotten there faster if we were more focused on the goals that we can actually control and the steps that get us there versus just putting the nose down to the grindstone.
Exactly. And it's, it's one of those things too. It's like I didn't know the value of networking, right? Like networking is a very big, like this is just coming from me now, and like this I think ties in also into the leading indicators and like learning about things that you need to do to get to certain lagging measures, right? Is that like personally for me, I just didn't really know the value of your network. It was always like your network is your net worth, right?
Yep.
It's like, what does that really mean though? And like, how do you really establish these connections and be super adult, and just have these relationships that help not only net you stuff, but them as well. And you guys can cultivate to, further your careers and everything. And not only that, but also be friends, and everything. And I just didn't understand that. And for some reason this year just really clicked like a month and a half ago, dude. I was just like, this just all makes sense now. And like, I get it. And like, I know how to do it. And I've been trying different things, and whatnot, but still just being a genuine person at the end of the day as well, just trying to cover all the bases. So even when you're going to plan your leading indicators, like you might not know everything when you go to sit down to do it. But
might not know. You won't know.
Yeah, exactly. And like the further you get into your career and start navigating the landscape of whatever you're doing, whether you're a musician or maybe you're an audio engineer or a producer like us or something, whoever is listening to this at this moment, you will learn more and be able to plan out better leading indicators, netting you more specific results and how to get there, and just set better goals for yourself to achieve as well, like along the way, because then you won't be like, I want to make $1 million off of this, right?
Yeah.
But you'll be like, I want to make at least 10 grand this month, right? And then it's like, oh wait, how do I get there? So I just want to specify that too, because that, like, to your point, like, it was just like it finally all just clicked, and it's like, this is how you do it,
Yeah.
And it's just a shame that it took me that long to get there, but it took that long. It just is what it is,
And the crazy thing is, like, we've absorbed and ingested a lot of information
Tons.
that really talks about that as a topic. For example, like Atomic Habits by James Clear, or 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, which is one of my personal favorite books.
Yeah.
But also like The Law of Compounding by
The Compound Effect by Darren
Compound
Hardy.
Effect which I was re-listening to, which really got me wanting to talk about this in today's episode. And it's the whole thing of like, if you have a goal you want to achieve or a habit you want to instill, the real question isn't to be like, yes, I want this goal. I want to lose weight. I want to be more fit. I want to be better at my instrument. I want to get this raise at work. And then just affirm it and make it happen, or yada, yada, yada. It's important to take that step back and be like, okay, well, if I want these goals, I want these outcomes, I want these lag indicators, what kind of person do I need to become? And what actions do I need to take in order to become the person that achieves these things?
Right.
If I want to make more money, well, I need to have, and I get the promotion at work. If I want to make more money and get the promotion at work, then I have to develop the skills and the work ethic and the communication skills to be the person who gets the raise to make that much more money at work.
Yep.
If I want to have a highly successful album that really connects with fans, then I need to be the kind of person that listens to my fans and it becomes more vulnerable and personal in my music that can tells more stories versus just making banger after banger.
Right.
If you want to make banger after banger, then you have to learn more about music composition and songwriting and more about sound textures and what's popular now and going into that.
Exactly. Yep.
You have to be the kind of person that does the things that gets you the effect. And we've read these books for years, and that's all they talk about is like taking a step back and reinventing yourself to achieve those goals. Yet it can take a long time.
It does.
To really have it click. And that's kind of what this episode is really we're trying to be for any like the music makers who are listening to this right now. Of a lot of times when we work with artists, they have huge awesome goals.
Yes.
What kind of person do you need to be to make that a reality.
Exactly. Well said. Well said, because it is true. And, like, we're fed all this information and told what to do, but until we actually go and do it and experience it, but not only be able to experience it, but be able to actually tell when we're doing it and be able to navigate and become conscious of our actions while we're doing that, it's tough. It's tough. And sometimes you have to be right place, right time for some of this too, right?
Yeah.
Like very specific moments while you're working with somebody or you're doing something specific, like as a task, they don't creep up every day. So it's like you have to make sure you can get into the habit of being repetitive with some sort of goals, right? Like I know I'm speaking very, very abstractly right now, but this is kind of way that I'm thinking about it, right? And putting yourself in these situations where you can navigate that and become conscious and be able to set that up for yourself later on.
Yeah. So here's what we're going to do for the remainder of this episode. Now that we've kind of briefly talked about what lead and lag measures are, why they're important, we're going to kind of go through some quotes, some goals, and some scenarios that we've heard from artists that we've worked with, and also just like goals in general that maybe you have that you're shooting for, and kind of have a conversation breaking it down to, okay, cool. Is this a lead or a lag measured goal? Is something that can be actionable? Do you have control over it? And if not, maybe what are the steps that you might need to start looking into to more quickly achieve that versus doing what I did for 6 years and just putting the nose to the grindstone and ignoring everything else and not actually making progress, just giving yourself a loop and a job to complete.
Pretty much, yeah. 100%.
So one of the biggest ones that we hear is I want to be big.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest one, honestly. I hear that one an awful lot, like an awful lot. And that one is so, first of all, it's a terrible goal because, like, define big, right? Everybody has their own definition. I mean, if you're thinking like Drake big, sure. Like if that's your, forerunner for that thought, that's fine. But I mean, how do you even get there in the first place? You want to be big. That's great. So you're making music, and then what?
Yeah.
Right? And then what kind of music are you making? Right?
Yeah.
And then how does your music even sound? Right? So you have to really go back down the crumb trail, right? And reevaluate each step along the way. How do I get there? Right? And then you also have to define what is big. Like please define that. Yeah. Right?
Do you think
very specific?
Yeah. Do you think your music and your next single is going to drop and it's going to change the whole world? Okay, cool. Maybe the song could do that. But have you, like, to make it to that point, what do you have to do to make sure people can hear it?
Yeah.
Do you actually have a fan base that exists that can get it out there, or will it be released to nobody? So then the lag measure of this, I want this song to be huge and to get 100 million plays. Okay, cool. What can you do to control to get you there? You can do interviews. You can get it on Spotify playlists. You can do paid promotion. You can get radio play. You can spend the time up front to make sure you have the best recording quality possible in all the different versions. So that way you can license it out. You can get an instrumental version, a vocal up version, different like a waveform, an MP3, so you can sell it on different platforms. You can, depend on which distributor you want to use that has resources that help benefit you to get it out there. We talk about distributors in episode 50. So like maybe DistroKid is great for what you want, or maybe CD Baby is going to be better. Maybe Lander is going to be the best, depending on what your end goal is with the song. So it's really taking a step back of, okay, I want it to be big. What can I control to get there? What are the things that a person with a big song has? And the conclusion might also be, well, they have a label.
Right.
Okay, cool. How do I get a label? That's what you need to do to make the song big, not just make a hit song. Because if you make a hit song and nobody hears it, then it doesn't matter if it's a hit song.
Right.
So maybe, okay, I got to make a label. Or if you want to stay independent, cool, I need to build a team. I need to find someone who can work on music. I need to find somebody who can put me in front of radio stations, or I need to find someone who can book me gigs around my city so I can tour and showcase what I'm doing to new potential fans and artists.
Yeah. And this is where people might be like, oh, this is so technical. Like, music's just supposed to be art, but I still want to be big. Well, it's a business too, unfortunately. And there's actually like a science to writing music as well. So, I mean, I'm talking about even going back to, how do I write a hit song? How do I become a better songwriter? How do I become a better musician so I can play the stuff that I want to showcase to the world, right? Like, very early on stuff, even what you're listening to, right? Like, what should I be listening to like put me in the mindset of, maybe, what is hot right now out in TikTok land, and and everything like that, right? So you have a lot of leading indicators that you have at your disposal to control to help get you to a lagging measure that might lead to better leading indicators later, right? Like Sean said, like sometimes you have to break it down into smaller bite-sized pieces, because if you're just saying, I want to get big, well, first of all, does that mean your song is actually big in size? Because big also means that, right? So we're not talking about actual size, right? So that's out of there, right? So big as in what, though?
Yeah, if you want to let people listen to it, well, maybe you need a radio edit that's short. That
Yeah.
actually wants to get people like quickly listen to it. Has a hook in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because also like the whole thing of like, oh, just make a lot of music until one blows up. Cool. Like that's putting the nose to the grindstone. That's being prolific. Which, yes, that could get you there.
And it has worked for some people.
Yeah, if you put out so much music consistently, you are playing the game that is more likely somebody will find one at some point and it can blow up. But also remember that every day on Spotify alone there's between 45,000 and 60,000 songs released. This is daily.
Yeah.
If you have a hit song and you release it without having the backbone and being the kind of person that can push a song to make it big, then it's going to go nowhere.
Right.
Because, oh my God, it's astronomically low, the chances of something happening.
Yeah.
Because of just the volume that is out there, the numbers that are fighting against you. And we're not saying this to like kind of
No, we're not gloom and doom.
demotivate you.
Yeah, no gloom and doom.
Yeah. No, we're actually saying it to motivate you.
Yeah.
Saying like, hey, there are things you can do that you have control over. There are lead measures that you can stack to make it so that, yes, your next song will be bigger than the song before it.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's just a more specific and more productive way of spending your time.
Very much
Instead
so.
of spending hours and hours working on beats or making songs and like playing the volume game, maybe it would be more beneficial for your specific goals to go out there and find somebody to help you or work a job to get enough money to pay for paid promotion or whatnot or whatever it may be. To get big, that may be what you need to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. So well said. And like Sean said, we never try to instill fear into the podcast at all, because like that's not what this is about. We're not trying to instill a scarcity mindset where you have to work yourself to a toxic limit or whatever the case may be.
No, we're not politicians.
Yeah, right. It's an election year too, so you have to be careful. You know what I'm saying? So very topical. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a great way to frame it. And now I think we've tackled the big one. No pun intended. And now we can kind of work backwards from that. So this is maybe something you should maybe take a part of, so work at take your big goal, and that's your lagging indicator, right? And then maybe you can work backwards to some leading indicators. So that might entail, Sean, I want to release an album.
Great.
Cool. Let's do it.
How much time are you giving yourself?
10 minutes.
10 minutes to record a whole album?
Yes, sir.
All right, man. I hope you have some AI tools downloaded on your computer here to just crank some shit out.
That's right.
Or just like put some splice shit together.
That's right.
Oh man, that would be an interesting challenge. Definitely,
That
not,
would be.
definitely not good.
Yeah, not great, but a very interesting challenge though, nonetheless.
Yeah, but no, like releasing an album is something that we hear all the time. Like, I want to release an album. Well, before you even get to that point, I would caution you to take a step back and being like, okay, why do you want to release an album? Is it just because people release albums? That's historically what has been done. Or do you have something you want to say with a collection of songs? Is there a reason for you to make an album? And we talk about this a little bit in one of our earliest episodes about music distribution methods. And we talk about the waterfall method and like releasing singles to build EPs or build albums or whatnot. Because at the end of the day, if your album is just a collection of songs, then and you want to play the game, then you may want to do a different method. But if you're nope, my album says something, it's a collection of music that's really personal, I want to have that big drop, that big push of music, fantastic. That's your goal. Now let's talk into things you can control to get you there within a good period of time versus just doing it all yourself or being more lax about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're recording your own album, right, that's a little bit more difficult. So maybe you just want to go to the studio and get it done really quick, right?
Yeah.
So you book out a full week at a studio. You have a professional engineer who's miking up your stuff, who is recording you. It takes all the technical alleviation off of you, right? So that way you're just being as creative as possible and focusing on the performance. And all of a sudden, at the end of the recording, you get a record that sounds really good and it hasn't even been touched by mixing yet. So maybe that's best where you invest your time when you start an album, right?
Yeah.
That's usually where Sean and I come into play, mind you, right? But that is a good way to do it because, I mean, if you're recording yourself, that could take so long, especially if you're not technically proficient in it. And then also the little guy in your head that says this isn't perfect starts kind of creeping out too, a little bit. So personally, that's maybe where I would start, as long as I knew the songs were good.
Yeah.
So like even working backwards from that, as long as the songs are good, like, I mean, if I think there's a weak song on the album, right, I'm just going to throw it out and just make another one maybe, or try to improve on the song that's already been there. Right. So now we're even working further back. Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say, even before that,
Yeah.
like, do you have enough songs for an album?
Right.
If you don't, okay, what kind of person writes enough songs to make an album?
Yeah.
Somebody who writes music like 3, 4, 5 days a week for an hour, 2 hours at home, and spends time specifically with the goal of writing songs.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to do it with other people. If you don't want it just be a solo project, okay, that kind of person goes out there and finds other musicians to
Exactly.
build a team of, make a band, or just, have them hired on to kind of compose and do stuff for it. Or they go to songwriting meetups or showcases, or look at forums online or watch YouTube videos about how to write better songs. That's like the basis of it. You have to put the effort up front. What kind of person, like, what do you have to do to make the album?
Yep.
And that's the first goal, to have enough songs. And as we talked about at the start of it, once you have all those songs written, you can check that off and you can feel better about it because, I'm closer to having my end goal of having an album. And now that I have the songs, that's something like that gets you moving that direction.
Yeah. And now this is like kind of where we split off, right? So like you can make an album for yourself, right? So if your lagging measure is that I want an album, that's great. You can reach that. That's no problem. And if it's only for yourself, that's perfectly fine. You're going to reach that, no problem. Guaranteed. Now this is where it becomes a little bit more difficult. Well, you want to release an album, that's great. But what do you want the album to do? Right? Because like if you're trying to make this a career, then there's another lagging indicator. What does the album do after you release it? But that also takes into consideration, what promotion are you doing? What kind of social media posts are you doing? What kind of content are you putting out? What kind of shows are you playing? How are you accessing your network? Everything leading up to the album release now, right, is now a leading indicator. Because if you want the album to do well, it's no longer just about, I want to make an album, but I also want the album to do well. Now there's another part of that which you have to plan for, which means more leading indicators.
And here's a huge point that I want to briefly talk about that you brought up earlier. Now you have an album. What's the next step?
Yeah.
Where do you want it to go? Well, there was a reason we started off with the big thing first. I want to be big. It's that big overall goal. I want to be large. I want to make money. I want this to be my thing. I want people to listen to me. Every lagging measure or large goal that you don't have a direct route to control to has other lagging measures within it, and it only becomes a lead measure when there is a step you can take to get to that next point. So like within the I want to be big is probably another I want to make an album, or I want to make a single. And if you have the song made and recorded and ready to be released, and then that lagging measure of I want to release a single becomes a lead measure. You need to then release it to then go to the next step, which then gets you to the album, which then gets you to pre-R and getting big and whatnot. So within that big overall thing is the small things. And until it becomes a next step, until it becomes something you can make action on, until it gets within your sphere of influence, it is still a lagging measure. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does.
It can be both. It'll change from one to the other when the time is right.
Yeah, absolutely. So that kind of leads us to our next one, maybe that I kind of touched on, maybe with like an album, is I want to play shows this summer. That's really cool. I think you should play shows this summer. I think you should play shows all year, actually. But if you really want to play shows in the summer, that's cool beans, man. I'm good with that. So how do we get there?
What kind of things can you do to play more shows?
Well, do you have a band? Do you have a guitar? Do you play yourself, or not like that, like that, but I mean like play the guitar yourself. Sorry about that. Pause.
Have you ever rehearsed your songs? Okay,
well, you definitely haven't rehearsed the podcast.
If you want to play live, no, this is all off the cuff. If you want to play more live shows, well, the person that plays a lot of live shows is someone who gets invited back to a venue, which means they're tight and have a good performance, something that's worth watching, that brings people in. So you need to have rehearsals, have people to play on stage with you, or rehearse the setup where it's just you, like have your own lights or whatever, or your solo or whatnot. And also, depending on what kind of show you want to play, if it's just you and an acoustic guitar, okay, cool. Now you know what kind of venues you want to go for. If your goal is to, like, I want to play a lot of big venues all summer, and you're just an acoustic artist that has some singer-songwriter songs, then you have some work to do. The person that plays these big venues is the person that has a large group or a super strong performance that people are engaged in. So now, okay, cool. I want to be by myself. Then I need to make it interesting visually for people to come and watch. So I need backing tracks. I need to practice with loops. I need to have a lighting setup. I need to control all these lights to MIDI that comes with me or whatnot. I need to have a strong enough following that draws people out. I need to make friends with other artists that will invite me on the ticket to open for them so that I can play these large venues, even though it's just me. Things like that. What can you control to get to that next step?
Yep.
I mean, at this point, we're really just going to be kind of getting redundant.
Yeah, honestly. Just trying to think if there's anything else this summer. Because we just came out of winter, so like I'm just trying to think of it real quick. I think you reached every point, honestly. Yeah, I can't think of anything else on that one. I just biffed it. My bad.
No, that's all good.
We've mentioned really a lot of the other ones too.
Exactly.
Because like you said, these all either work backwards or forwards in some way, shape, or form, right? Like they're all going to touch on each other at some point, right? Yeah, I'm looking through these because like I wrote down I want to make better songs. We just touched on that, right?
We did, yeah.
I want to be big. We work backwards from that one. I want more fans and followers. That entails being big, right? And like that.
Well, and that entails
likewise.
PR.
Yeah, exactly.
Learning what kind of content people react to. So, like getting skills on how to make short videos or whatnot, or hiring someone to do it for you. Well, what kind of person hires somebody? Someone that has that makes that money back from their music, or has that money from another job to pay for it. So, make sure you do that, or vice versa. Or do you learn the skills yourself? And what equipment do you need? And a lot of this is just taking a step back and being like I said, we're probably just going to scratch the rest of the list that we have. Because you get the concept at this point. It's just taking a step back and being like, okay, where am I? What do I need to do next that gets me in that direction of this large goal? And taking the time to actively think of, okay, what can I control to get here? Not just, I want to play big shows, so I'm going to hit up this venue and say, hey, can I play this show? Well, if you actually want to get it, then you're going to need other people on the ticket. You're going to need to have an EPK that's built to showcase that this is how many people we can draw in. You have to have a rehearsed show that can fill in 60 minutes to an hour and a half of time. All these things. And just thinking, okay, where am I? What do I have to do it successfully? And then be invited back and be able to do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Being invited back is like a really key part, by the way, because that is not only networking, but like that also like kind of reaffirms that you're doing something right. So like if you're not getting invited back to places, that might be a leading indicator. That's your lagging indicator. That there's something wrong with your leading indicators, right? So you can also use it for like some kind of like, I don't want to say negative, but like maybe some stuff you need to improve on itself, right? So like if you're having these negative lagging indicators, right, where nobody's listening to your music, nobody's inviting you back to shows, nobody wants to talk to you, well, there might be something going on in the front of it that you can control and be better at, so that way you have the opposite results. Now tell me why it caught at that time.
It caught at that time.
Tell me why it caught it. We're leaving this in, by the way. So we just had another power surge.
But it didn't crash
this time. Let's
check OBS real quick.
We're keeping this in.
If you want to have a professional studio, you need to make sure that your whole shit doesn't break down whenever a power surge is happening.
That's right.
So that means you need an APC.
So here's what we're going to do.
Or EPC.
We're going to keep the video going, okay? But I'm going to stop Pro Tools and save it. And then I'm going to pick Pro Tools back up. Is that okay?
Ooh. We're almost done here.
Okay, let's wrap it up.
Wrap it up real quick.
Let's wrap it up.
Yeah, I mean, basically at this point, just take a step back, look back at what you can control, what you can't control, and then do the things you can control. An easy way to do this is the kind of 4 quadrants method based on Stephen R. Covey, where you make a square that has 4 different sections in it. And at the top, you have 2 labels versus important and non-important. And on the side, you have immediate and non-immediate. And you fill it in with certain tasks you have to do. Like quadrant 1 is important and immediate. So it's like things like important phone calls or medical things or whatnot, where negative things will happen if you don't do this immediately.
Yeah.
It's time. Needs to be done quickly. Yes.
Yep.
The second quadrant is it's important, but you're not necessarily in a huge rush to do it. And this is honestly where a lot of the big plays happen. It's the things that you're not necessarily pressured to do. There's no huge time deadline, but it's very important. It will move you forward. And that's where a lot of these lead measures really fall into that will actually get you to your end goal at the end of the day. So if you can organize all the things that you are currently doing or things that you want to do into these quadrants, it can help you identify that next step and where you are in your lead measures based on where you currently are. So I just want to throw that out there as a quick thing. There will be a link to to the chart, kind of showcasing it in the description.
It's a great chart, actually.
Yeah.
Super good chart.
Yeah, but with that all being said, we are on a potential time deadline because the power could die.
Which quadrant is that?
This is 1.
Yeah,
It's immediate
so-
and time bound and important.
Yeah.
So quick, Brandon, how can they find you?
Studio222.com. Sean, no, I didn't even say that right. Studio222recording.com. Sean, where can they find you?
SWSrecordings.com. Yep.
Awesome. Bon appetit.
Bon appetit.